The Eastern and Western Conference Finals are now set. We know which teams are going to go up against each other for a chance to make it to the NBA Finals, but a lot of the conversation is surrounding teams that did not make it this far and what could be the next moves that they make. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the 76ers, the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Golden State Warriors and what they could have planned for this offseason. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host, Sarah Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today, y'all. And we're going to start off talking about the Philadelphia 76ers, who have the number 3 overall pick in this draft. And reportedly, according to some, is that the 76ers could be prepared to use the number 3 overall pick to get out of Paul George's contract. Now, that would be interesting if that happens. Right now, teams that could be coming around, sniffing around the number 3 pick, would they be willing to take on Paul George's contract if it meant getting the number 3 overall pick in this draft where the top 3 players are all slated to be really damn good, right? You could take Ace Bailey, you could take VJ Edgecombe, or some of the players that, of course, well, the 2 players that are really kind of commonly mocked to go there depending on how you look at it. And this is a little bit surprising for me, right? Mainly because the 76ers are in a place where they have Tyrese Maxey, they have Jared McCain, who got hurt last year, and they could be on the verge of taking a player there at number 3 and starting to build and forge a new core that then they could try to start building around those type of things, whether they can move Joel Embiid or not. But we'll see what happens with it. But this one, go ahead and go to this one. This one comes from ESPN, where it says this. Some teams expect the 76ers to be active in trade conversations, with names such as Kevin Durant and Lauri Markkanen as potential targets in packages that could include Paul George and the number 3 pick. 76ers president of basketball operations, Daryl Morey, has made a career of being active and aggressive on the trade front, but historically, it's rare to see a top 3 pick being traded. This would be really interesting, right? Now, make no mistake about it. Paul George, in the amount of years that he has left on his contract, it's crazy, right? It's a huge, a pretty large contract to be under, especially with the performance that Paul George gave you last year. And while I look at Paul George, and I think he's a player that, when he's on the basketball court, he pretty much plays the right way, right? Which is really good. But unfortunately, with injuries and things like that, it never really materialized. They have 3 more years of Paul George's contract, the last year of that being a player option, which he's probably going to pick up, being that he's 34 years old. He'll be 37 when that one kicks in, right? So, he's probably going to pick up that last year of that player option. But this is an interesting scenario because that would say one of a couple of things, right? Either they're hoping to be able to move with a team and get their pick and let that team move up to number 3. So one of the teams that, for example, was mentioned is Utah, right? Would Utah be willing to move up to number 3 for number 5 and take on Paul George's contract to do so? Now, the Utah Jazz are a team that seems like they are committed to being able to wanting to tank for a while, right? They're going to want another chance at the number 1 overall pick next year as well. And so maybe the Utah Jazz are a little bit more open to doing that. They also have the 21st pick in this draft as well, which could get pretty interesting if they want to include that one. But that is an avenue that the 76ers could go down, and I think it is something that they do need to explore when it comes down to it. Like, if you can get off Paul George's contract, still wind up with the lottery pick in this year's draft, you do that. You make that decision. Now, the Phoenix would be a little bit more interesting in that case, seeing as how they don't have they don't have a pick to offer you. Like, all their picks are going outward. So, like, what is Kevin Durant? Do they think Kevin Durant is that enough for them? Right? So maybe they're not even necessarily looking at staying in the lottery if that's going to end up being the case, right? So there's a lot that's there. And keep in mind with the Phoenix Suns, unless they make a subsequent move as well, they can't take multiple players back. So it has to be a 1-for-1 trade because they're over the second tax apron as well, right? But if you have Kevin Durant there, you have Maxey, you have McCain, you have the depth that they built last year that they weren't really to take advantage of because of how much injuries that they had to use those guys as main pieces. And then you get Joel Embiid back healthy whenever he gets back healthy. Is that enough to compete in the Eastern Conference? It's already going to be without Tatum for the majority of the year. We don't know if Giannis is going to end up being in the Eastern Conference at all either, right? So you have those type of things that you're looking at. And it really, I think, depends on how wide open the rest of the East is and how you view it. If Giannis gets moved out of the East to the West, right? Then on top of that, the Boston Celtics are down. You're looking then as going into the Eastern Conference where it's going to be the Cavs, the Pacers, the New York Knicks, right? As some of the top teams in that conference potentially, with hopefully the Orlando Magic able to get back on track and things like that. So maybe you're looking at that when it comes down to it. And we'll see. And it provides some more flexibility for the 76ers financially as well, seeing as how Kevin Durant is only on his deal that expires at the end of next season, so that could get them some more flexibility if it does not work out or they choose to do so. So the Philadelphia 76ers being open for business here with the number 3 pick, I think is going to make this really, really exciting that it has to go down with it, even if they do go with Lauri Markkanen route. There's 4 more years left on Lauri Markkanen's contract. He is still young-ish, where he can fit the timeline one way or another. It gives you another big as well that I think could actually play well with Drummond when Embiid is hurt. So you can look at that as well. And, maybe the 76ers are feeling like that they can put something together in the Eastern Conference that could be wide open next season, enough to be able to compete. And why wait on a young player at the number 3 overall pick to develop? Maybe you just get the 21st pick back from the Utah Jazz in a case like that. So I think there's a lot of things to look at for when it comes down to it. But let me know what you guys think. Right? Hearing that the Philadelphia 76ers are open for business potentially at the number 3 pick, but you got to take Paul George's contract to get it. Is that going to be something with his over $50 million per year salary? Is that going to be enough for teams and entice them enough to move into the number 3 overall pick to take on Paul George and the possible 2 for sure remaining years on his contract? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. The next topic that we want to get into, the next team, is the Milwaukee Bucks, right? And reportedly that they are preparing if they need to trade Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, Giannis does have a meeting scheduled with the ownership group of the Milwaukee Bucks to kind of decide on a path here. They may come out of that meeting with a decision on what's the route that they're going to go. Is Giannis going to be traded? Is he asking out? And I think that that's fair. But this one comes out as well from ESPN that they say this. I've been told by multiple sources the Bucks are taking steps in the event that Giannis Antetokounmpo moves on. One of those steps is bringing some projected top 8 draft picks to Milwaukee before the June 25 NBA draft. The Bucks, as of now, don't even have a first-round pick in this draft. So the Milwaukee Bucks are already starting to prepare, and it seems like they understand it's a realistic chance that Giannis Antetokounmpo requests a trade at this meeting that they're going to have with them. And that just makes sense. You don't want to be caught with your pants down, and then you're not doing your due diligence. And even if the Giannis trade wasn't there, I think a lot of teams still bring in some lottery picks at that point in time. But if they get a top 8 pick in this draft, or even top 10 pick, it's very reasonable to think that that's what you're going to get back if you move Giannis Antetokounmpo before the draft. And so this meeting today, I think, is going to be really important because the Milwaukee Bucks are going to have to put a pitch together on why Giannis should stay there. Now, I think a lot of that pitch is going to be built around the loyalty that Giannis has to the Milwaukee Bucks, the connection that he has to the city of Milwaukee, things like that, the fact that it's a franchise that they are willing to do whatever it takes, right? They already moved Chris Middleton. Think they can hang their hat on that. That just shows that they're willing to do whatever it takes to move off of some pieces to be able to try to put something together. And to their credit, they've tried. It's just things haven't worked out. The Dame trade didn't work out, those type of things. But when you look at some teams that could be interested in Giannis, Houston being one of them, that's a top 10 pick right there, right? We heard Toronto's also a team that could be interested. That's a top 10 pick right there as well. So, the fact that Milwaukee is already starting to look at this thing and realize we have to start preparing if Giannis does request this trade, if we sit down with Giannis and we all decide that we're not able to come to an agreement on the path and the direction and the vision that we have for this team, and that thus it leaves Giannis to want out, what do we do after that? And I think that's an important question to ask for. I think you also got to look at the Houston Rockets. Like we heard that they could be interested in including Alperen Sengun in a trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I think that's smart, right? Like they don't want to include Amin Thompson. And if you're going to go to the deal not willing to include Amin, you basically have to open up to just about everything else, right? So all the Phoenix picks that the Milwaukee Bucks have, that the Houston Rockets have, on top of the of Sengun, who is a proven player, an all-star, right? So at least they're getting that back. And another young player, whether that's Green, whether that ends up being Jabari Smith, or somebody else on that team, Cam Whitmore, whoever that is, you have to be willing to be open to that for the Milwaukee Bucks to be open and do business with you. So, if they get to a spot where this meeting happens and then they decide, okay, Giannis, we understand you want out. We're going to shop you. We're going to start moving down that path so that we can move on. As long as they don't do the Nico Harrison, start a bidding war. Here are the offers from every team that is willing to make an offer for you for Giannis's services, and then make your determination based off that, right? Could the San Antonio Spurs come calling? The Houston Rockets are definitely expected to be a team that could come calling, right? Toronto Raptors are a potential there, which, we'll see what that could end up if that's a team that entices them. But I do think that Giannis is good. They're going to respect Giannis's wishes, and he's going to have a say in this as well, as far as probably a list of teams that he's going to want to go to. And then the Milwaukee Bucks should at least start with that list. Now, make no mistake about it, Giannis does not have a no-trade clause. And if you can facilitate a deal with one of Giannis's preferred teams, great. If not, I think you still owe it to do whatever the best is in the best interest of your franchise, and you got to make that decision at that point in time. So, it's going to be, we could see a lot of movement. I know I've been saying that a lot, but I do think there's a lot of movement coming here in the NBA this offseason, maybe more between the draft picks that could be moved, the players that could be moved, all these type of things. This may be one of the most active off seasons that we've seen from the NBA as a whole, right? As far as the number of names, the money, the high draft picks that all are moved, this is going to be a high-powered off season, I think, as well. Now, another team that's looking to get into that business is the Golden State Warriors. Now, their season ended early, right? Well, and so it depends on how you look at it, right? Steph, unfortunately, was not healthy at the end of that series, but you saw some things. You got Dre, you got Jimmy, you got Steph, right? They're all their contracts in at the same time. That's clearly the window now that the Golden State Warriors are looking into, right? And there's been some talk on could they move Draymond Green to get another player in here? Well, they've gone ahead and said that it's not going to happen, right? This one comes from Brett Siegel, who says this: the only instance Green could potentially be traded is if he went to Dunleavy and Lakeup and asked for a trade. This won't happen, nor does Draymond envision himself playing for another team without Steph, sources said. This team's identity looking ahead to 2025-26 season revolves around Curry, Butler, and Green. Ideas on moving either Butler or Green aren't going to be explored in this offseason, contrary to popular belief that one could be flipped in a trade to acquire a superstar like Giannis or Kevin Durant. So, it seems like the Warriors have picked their path, right? And that they want to look for pieces that are complementary to what they have going on here to try to give themselves a better chance in next year's playoffs. I think that that's going to revolve around a center, a big, whether that's an offensive big or a defensive big or a mix between the two. I think that players like Nikola Vucevic, Miles Turner, these are some guys that they could explore things on. But then again, the Warriors don't have a lot of the big-time salary as well to move in some cases like that. If they want to make a move or a trade, you got to look at either Moses Moody, Pods, or somebody's going to be on Trace Jackson Davis, who may be a free agent at the end of this year, is going to have to be on the move. So they're going to have to figure something out when it comes down to it. And I think that losing to the Timberwolves, which I do think they would have been more in that series had they had Steph Curry for sure, is that they're going to be trying to build something. Now, I've called this and labeled the upcoming season the Wild Hog season for the Golden State Warriors. If anybody remembers that movie Wild Hogs, I know it wasn't like the most popular movie, but that's old people who formed a motorcycle group, right? And they have these old wily vets who still got a lot of fight to them. Make no mistake about it, they got bite to them still. But they've added them, and they're trying to figure out what they can do with them going on in the future. And I think that's what they have to decide. So, we shall see what happens. And if you can overcome whatever happens there in the future, we'll see what happens. But, the Golden State Warriors are going to be looking to be active to add to this team. They're going to be buyers, not really sellers. And I think that's a perfect spot for them to be in, man. And we'll see what happens when it all comes down to that for them. But, it's going to be interesting. I think that as a basketball fan, it's fun to see Steph still be able to be Steph when he's healthy, right? It was fun to see the Golden State Warriors still be good and do what they did in the opening round of those playoffs. That's all fun, right? I think when it comes down to it as well, like you gotta, this is their path now. Don't give up any more assets if you can avoid it, right? And just ride this last out. This may be the last 2 years of Steph, Dre, Steve Kerr as well, right? This may be your last little bit of stretch and your last couple of runs with these guys, and see what you can do on it when it comes down to it, man. But there are going to be a lot of teams movement. There are going to be some players moved as well. And if the Golden State Warriors can get involved in that and try to improve their team, they owe it to their team to be able to do it, man. And so we shall see what comes next for these teams. But, the interesting thing about this offseason is there's going to be a lot of teams some big teams looking to get under that second tax apron, and how that adds to parity around the league, right? Like, there's going to be 7 different NBA champions in 7 years, the first time that ever happened. I see that stat that came out. And that's going to be a fun thing to watch and see, right, is that there is more parity. And it's coming via that the stars have to spread themselves out now because of that second tax apron. And as long as that continues, like we could see kind of more of this. Like, make no mistake about it, you're still going to see another dynasty eventually, especially if it's built the right way. You're going to see teams, eventually somebody's going to repeat as an NBA champion, and that's all fine and dandy. Make no mistake about that at all. But I think when you look at this thing coming down overall, like this is kind of an unprecedented time in a lot of ways in the NBA. And, because the second tax apron, we're really starting to see that the ramifications and implications that has on teams that are actually good, right? And bad teams like Phoenix, of course, like you need to look to break that up, whether you were whatever, right? Because the team's just bad, whether the money was good or not. But teams that are good are going to have to start making some tough financial decisions on what that affects and how it affects the future of their franchise. And that's going to be the important and the fun thing to watch. But before we get out of here, we do have the finals in each conference is set, right? You got the OKC Thunder against the Minnesota Timberwolves. That starts tomorrow on May 20th. They don't get very long to rest. This is a series where the Thunder absolutely should be favored. Make no mistake about it. And they have the greatest chance to win. But with the way that this playoffs has already gone, how unexpected everything has been in the way that it's gone in these playoffs, I don't think you can just assume it's going to go one way or another, right? You can't assume that. So I think with the way Ant's playing, Julius Randle's playing some of his best basketball, the depth of the Minnesota Timberwolves is a lot deeper than, for example, against the Denver Nuggets, which I think really did hurt that Denver Nuggets team, is the lack of depth. They only go 3 deep into their bench, whereas the OKC Thunder are consistently going 4, 5, sometimes even 6 deep into their bench. But the Timberwolves have a lot more depth than that. So they're going to be more prepared. Now, I'm not saying they're hugely prepared. I'm not saying they should be favored or anything like that, but they will be more prepared to battle that depth of the OKC Thunder, and we'll see what happens with that. And then you in the Eastern Conference, you have the Pacers versus the Knicks. And while the Pacers were at this place before, I don't think really with the way the season going, many people had them making it this far, and especially for the Knicks, with how the Knicks contended or lack thereof during the regular season against the top teams in the league. So this in a lot of ways is going to be fun series on both sides of the ball to see the stories that develop over that time. The Pacers in the Knicks series is going to be one that I definitely think can go 7 games for sure. I think it comes down to Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Halliburton, how good of a series do you get from Cat? The depth on that perimeter defense from the New York Knicks is going to be really good as well. Tibbs got the team actually playing Tibbs ball right now. So that's a fun thing to watch in all of this as well. I'm not going to get into predictions, maybe on tomorrow's episode if I had some more time to go over it. But I think that this has been one of the most fun playoffs that I've seen in recent memory. And, shout out to the teams that competed in this and, the fact that it has been as entertaining as what it is. But I think when you look at these upcoming series, like these are going to be fun. These are teams that I think are going to be well matched. There's going to be some fight and bite. The coaching throughout these series as well. Wirt Carlisle, Tom Thibodeau, both coached really good so far in these playoffs as well. You look at the Timberwolves and the OKC Thunder, we know they are very well-coached teams also. And, we get to see battles. And that's the part that I like, is to see battles when it all comes down to it, man. And so, we'll see. The Nuggets push the Thunder to 7 games. Can the Minnesota Timberwolves come in and do something similar, right? Can they? That's going to be the question that everybody's asking, even though I know the Thunder are going to be favorited. We still don't have an MVP named either yet. Come on, let's get that MVP named. NBA, what are we doing here, man? But between this, the draft coverage, it's going to be a fun time around the channel. Y'all make sure y'all stay in tune with us around this channel, because I promise y'all, we're going to be delivering some great content for you over the course of this between us here at Six Man Shenanigans. You got the Old Heads podcast that's also part of this feed. We got you covered on a mix between youth and elderliness as well. Shout out to the Old Heads podcast. So we appreciate you guys so much for everything and the support that we've been getting on these channels as we're trying to focus it and grow it a little bit more. Also, let us know down below anything that you want covered that hasn't been covered yet as well. But that's my time for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you're following us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything basketball related. And I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.